What's up, nerds? For those who are new, welcome to the channel. For those who are coming back, welcome back. Happy New Year. It is 2023, and in the beginning of January, this is when people are setting new goals, thinking about resolutions, thinking about what they want to do differently or do more of or do less of in the new year. So today, I'm going to talk about how you can read more, how you can set higher goals for yourself and hit higher reading totals by the time the year comes to a close, or if you're not reading at all or not reading as much as you would like to, how you can increase the amount of books you read in a year. I think this is a very interesting topic because, speaking from my own experience, I didn't read an absolute ton when I was younger, or even as I progressed through high school and into college. I was maybe picking up a new book once every couple weeks. I think when I first started sort of tracking my reading on, an app or a website like Goodreads, I was reading around 30 to 40 books a year, which for some people sounds like absolutely nothing, and for some people might sound like a lot, but I think this video will apply to everybody when it comes to thinking about what the things are that we can do to read more. And these are some of the things that took me from reading 30 or 40 books a year back in 2017, 2018, 2019 to reading 100 books last year in 2022. The first thing I'm going to talk about here, and I think this might be the most useful thing when it comes to reading more, is not discriminating against different ways of accessing your books. And when I say that, I mean you should be willing to read ebooks, audiobooks, and physical books. Now, I know people who don't even consider listening to audiobooks as real reading, and I think that's an absolutely ridiculous proposition. There are, of course, different types of learners out there, and frankly, different types of abilities when it comes to accessing reading and thinking about literacy. Some people literally cannot sit down and read text on a page. So it can be a little bit ignorant to say that audiobooks are not reading. They are, of course, slightly different experiences, but all in all, you are taking in a story. You can analyze language and process the events of a book, of a plot, of a story, process and analyze writing while listening to it the same way you can while looking at it. Again, those are two different processes going on, but all in all, it adds up to reading, and audiobooks are a thing for a reason. I myself absolutely love audiobooks. I would say I split my time pretty evenly between reading physical books or ebooks and audiobooks, but ultimately I take what I can get. And when it comes to saving money, using things like your library to access free audiobooks, which it still astounds me how many people don't know that you can do that. If you use an app like Overdrive or Libby, or even utilize free trials on non-library applications like Scribd or Audible or all these other different applications, you can access audiobooks many times for free and a lot of times for pretty good deals in terms of subscriptions, and it still goes a certain length in supporting your favorite authors, your favorite writers, and supporting and reading your favorite books. So I would encourage you, if you want to think about, okay, I want to increase my reading goal for 2023, I want to be able to read more this year, to be more willing to access things like audiobooks or ebooks instead of exclusively reading physical books or exclusively reading through the mode that you typically prefer, if you are able to, of course. My second tip for this is going to be to read the books you own. And I know that can be incredibly tough, and I relate to that fully. Some of my favorite videos to make on YouTube and favorite videos to watch from other creators on YouTube are book hauls. It is so much fun to go out there, buy some of the books that you've wanted for such a long time, or pick up new releases. Oftentimes, even though it is very fun, it can take away from the experience of reading the books you already own. And for me, even at times when I'm constantly thinking, okay, I need to buy this new book, I need to get these other books, while I still have plenty of books behind me on my shelf to read, it can put me in this sort of like gray area area between, okay, do I read the books I just bought, or do I read all these books I already own? And it's this sort of like stymied state of paralysis that can be absolutely maddening. But I think if we can just take a step back and still appreciate, a new release here or there, and still treat yourself, that life is too short not to buy the books you want to read, you can still sort of approach the books you already own and try to make your way through those, instead of constantly buying books and being in this sort of in-between state where you're not really reading the books you already own and you're buying too many books to actually keep up and read all of them. So go on a bit of a book buying break. As much as it breaks my heart to say that, try to make your way through reading the books that you already owned. I tried to do that during the second half of 2022 and it helped a lot. You'd be surprised how great that can feel when you look at your shelf and you say, okay, I've read 80-90% of all these books already, and it's sort of like a reward. All right, strategy number 3 for reading more this year is expanding your horizons. Now, we already talked about what it looks like to expand your horizons when it comes to accessing different mediums of reading, but this also means reading outside of your comfort genres, reading outside of your favorite authors. When I was younger, sort of the first author I fell in love with reading was Stephen King, and I quickly found out that Stephen King has a finite amount of books, and ever since then, I've been kind of delaying each Stephen King book I read so that I can extend his catalog out as far as possible. So I started to look up, okay, what are other great horror authors that I read that are similar to Stephen King? I read, some Joe Hill. Then I found Neil Gaiman, and then I found Clive Barker. And then I realized, some of these other authors, they're working within horror, but they're also working within fantasy, so maybe I'm a fantasy fan. Then all of a sudden I found out that I really like fantasy. And from fantasy, I realized that there were similarities between some fantasy and sci-fi, and I got really into, you see where I'm going with this. As you start to expand your horizons, you realize that there are endless amount of books out there that you will enjoy. So it's sort of sticking to your favorite author all the time is just going to automatically sort of limit the amount of books you're going to naturally reach for. As you, and you can do this very slowly, start to expand what kinds of books you read, what kind of authors you read. Do a little bit of research, figure out what kind of genres you like, even if they're not your absolute favorite genre. It's good to visit other sort of topics and areas of reading, and naturally as you do that, again, you're going to have more and more books at your disposal for you to read throughout the year. Definitely expanding your horizon is going to be one of the biggest areas of growth for you when it comes to reading more on a yearly or regular basis. My fourth tip here may not be the most fun one, but think about your free time differently. I know that for me, it can be very sobering sometimes to look at my weekly or daily screen report on my phone. And if my stomach sort of drops when I do that, I know that I can probably be using my time in a bit of a different way. I'm constantly saying to myself, even though that I read 100 books in 2022 and I would have never imagined doing that in past years, how can I get more free time? How can I get more time to do the things that I absolutely love to do? And when I sort of start to reframe the way I think about free time, thinking about the way I'll just sit around, it'll turn from 5 minutes to 10 minutes to 20 minutes to an hour. Sure, I might be tired during that free time. I get home from my 9 to 5. My brain isn't absolutely firing on all cylinders. That can still be reading time. Maybe you just want to pop on an audiobook, close your eyes, and sit down in a comfy chair. Maybe you want to take the time you are going to watch The Office for the 5th time through. Instead, just read your book for 20 or 30 minutes. Those sort of short bursts of reading start to add up, and you start to complete books every couple days or a couple weeks, whatever it might be. It doesn't matter what pace you are reading at, but if you sort of think about the way that you are using your free time, not to be Mr. Productivity over here. I hate when people are like drill sergeants about being productive with every minute of your day. Don't feel like you need to be doing it, because that kind of sucks the fun out of it. But still, if you are somebody who wants to read more, and hopefully you are if you clicked on this video, otherwise none of this is working. Think about different points at which you could be reading. Maybe that's right before bed, 30 minutes, you put your phone down, you throw it on the charger, and you lay back and you read for those 30 minutes leading up to bed. Maybe you like to sit down and have a cup of coffee in the morning before you head out to work. I know that's one of my favorite times to read. I have 30 minutes before I leave the house to go to my job, sit down with my coffee, sit down with a book, get 20-30 minutes of reading in, maybe a chapter or two. Maybe on your commute to work, you are usually just kind of sitting there mindlessly listening to music or a podcast or the radio, and you listen to an audiobook. You can find these pockets in each day that will add up to you reading a lot more in the span of an entire year. And my fifth and final tip, don't pressure yourself too much. Don't overthink reading. You are probably not getting paid to read. Reading is not your 9-to-5 job. It's not how you make a living. Don't feel super restricted to all these numbers, to all these goals, because if you pressure yourself too much, it's going to be crippling. It's going to be paralyzing, and you're going to find yourself not wanting to read at all. So with consideration of those 4 tips, in a final 5th tip, don't be hard on yourself. There's enough times throughout your week and throughout your day, things are going to be measured, quantified. Don't do that to yourself with your hobbies. And you'll find that that sort of ease that you apply to reading will allow you to read more if you're not treating it like a task. Those are my 5 tips on how you can read more. Again, I went from reading 30-40 books a year to reading 101 books in 2022 by using these 5 tips. And I found that it has not only enhanced my reading experience a lot, it's made it more fun, but sort of without even noticing, it's allowed me to read a whole lot more. If someone asked you this question, how can I read more? How would you answer? Would you use some of the tips that I talked about today? Or do you have some unique advice of your own? Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.